business plan should be made really quick, grounded in the goals that you want to achieve, and then reverse engineer it or invert it, like Charlie Munger used to say.
Yeah.
Right. And then build the plan and then get to work. The problem is people want to like stick with the plan until they see the plan being perfect. This step, and now that step's perfect, and I can go to this step. And well, the reality is that it's never perfect. And so when you first start to dip your toes in the pond of this business plan in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And the first time something doesn't go the way it's supposed to, and then it's uncertain, and you step back and don't take action. I'm unorganized enough in a fortunate way that I just take action.
Yeah.
But so we can go here because I think we touched on something that a lot of people that I lead, that I'm around, and maybe even my past self and so many other people, they're waiting to take action until they not even just see it, but they got to feel certain. You're not going to feel certainty because there's nothing certain about the exact process of that this outcome is going to take.
Right.
So how have you found to exist personally, and even in business as you're building M1 Academy, how have you found to operate, establish, and grow in a place where not certain?
I can speak from me personally and anecdotally through clients I've worked with. This need for certainty comes from a place of trying to eliminate fear. That's the big thing. We all have fears and insecurities. So we feel like if we create some certainty that even overrides what we know to be true, that will eliminate it, make ourselves feel better. In the context of the procrastination as a failure disease that you're talking about, from a business planning standpoint, I frame a business plan versus a strategy because we have to have some guidance and direction to take action.
That's the plan.
Correct. So that being said, easy metaphors, football. The strategy to win a football game is to drive the ball down the field into the end zone and keep the other team from doing the same thing. The plan, all the individual plays that you actually execute to go down the field or keep the other team from going down the field. What you're talking about is when that play is busted, can you pivot? Can you think on your feet and go ahead and move forward even though the plan is no longer in place?
I'm a person of like hanging on words because
Sure.
words matter. You said, can you? And you're asking it to you, to me, to everyone.
Correct.
I actually want to say eliminate can because that's already a known fact.
Sure.
We can. Will you?
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing is we all can. And so the correct frame is, will you do those things? The same reason people procrastinate, or the example you used, when the plan doesn't go the way we want to step back and we fall into analysis paralysis. I still think that that's a symptom of fear, but in a lot of situations, it's fear of failure.
And let's do this too. So I get fear of failure, but I'm also going somewhere else. Maybe it's just fear of the uncertain, right?
Sure.
I think they might even be different.
Sure.
It might not even be fear, but it's like, I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I really would prefer not to do this thing because I don't know what it's going to be. Well, if you haven't traveled the path, if you haven't won or lost in that same game, that same business, you don't know what the path is going to look like. And so if you've sat down and made the business plan, it's a good plan, you just reverse engineer the plan. Go out on the trek.
Yeah.
Like, go do the thing. And I know these are all metaphors and they're cliche, but it's like, what do we need to say and do in coaching ourselves
Sure.
and people to just take daily action on the business development things that need to happen to get where you want to go? Like, we make this so complicated.
We do. And you've touched on it a couple of times without fully stepping into it, which is the way to ground yourself from all of that is to go take action. And that is almost overused, right? What does take action mean?
Do the work based on the plan that you identified that needs to be done.
Correct.
That's it.
Both
It's just the work.
both personally and professionally,
Yeah.
right? The same thing we're talking about from a business perspective of go do work, go focus on the high output or high impact activities, the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
What are those 20% of things that are disproportionately going to give you results? But I think the same thing happens in our lives or us as people. If we'll focus on bettering our mind, bettering our body, like we're expanding beings.
Don't you get the thing that we focus on? That's the secret. But I had a guy on the other day, and whatever you seek, you'll find.
Sure.
I used to hear those statements. I just know it's true now. I see myself walking around. I have 10 times fit, just like everyone. Anyone who does a lot of things, you have way more failure than you do success. But what I find myself, the majority of the times, I have a good attitude about it.
That's the difference,
right?
though.
I have a positive, good attitude, and I'm just like, it's part of the process. Let's go. And what I consistently see in a lot of people I engage with, they'll look at me and say, look at all the things you're succeeding at. You're so far ahead of me. And I'm like, you know what? If you just change your mindset just a little bit to this, that I don't ignore it when it's tough. I'm like, that was tough.
Yep.
Man, I didn't want that to happen. Man, I didn't see that one coming. But you get right back on track. And I'll hand it back to you in a second. But this word about these characteristics, I have seen, I think competitive nature is really important, right? This curious competitive nature. But the thing that I'm finding more in my life and everybody that I'm coaching that has it or doesn't is resilience. And I want to go deep into this word. See, if we all accept that the way that we grow and learn is through failure, you say whatever, there's books written, we don't fail, we just learn. Okay. When the thing doesn't go as planned and you didn't get the outcome that you wanted, what do you do? And it's not only what do you do, how quick do you do it?
Right.
So the most important thing I have seen is if we accept that the majority of our experiences are going to fail, then the most important characteristic is how resilient are you?
Right.
Because resilience is getting back up and going again. I see people taking days and weeks and months. And that's why this dumb shit about, well, New Year's resolutions. It's December 19th today. Why are you waiting until January 2nd?
Yep.
It makes no sense. If you're a person that knows that you want to change your health or you want to change your business practices, and I'm going to wait until January 2nd, it's not that you won't, you may, but by February 3rd, you're done. And so it is just this mindset of folks that they can't handle the pain. You have got to build your brain around this idea that when it doesn't go the way I wanted, that's why the plan's so important. Let me come back real quick, try again, learn what didn't go well and try again. And you may have to do that 10 times, 20 times before the thing wins. So the important part about resilience is the quicker you get back up and try it again, the quicker you're going to get to the outcome. So many people quit before they see that process through. And you just have to, as a human, go through that once or twice all the way, and you'll prove to yourself, I can do this.
Before people get there, I'm going to go back to the truth and certainty in terms of resilience. The truth of the matter that we know is we see people on stage, we read books, we have successful people in our life that have done that exact thing, meaning the far majority of your experiences are going to be failures and you can still come out the other side. That's the truth. But each individual person wants to be certain that they're also going to be one of those people, and that creates the hesitation.
They are going to be one as long as they stick with this resilient comeback enough.
That's what I'm saying, though.
Yes.
They want to be certain that it's going to be one of them. They don't know. You and I can sit here and say that's the truth, and there is a certain factor if they do that thing.
You're going somewhere, but let me say this too. If for some, because we all do have these baseline of abilities in different areas. Some people are better at sales, some people are better at intuition. But what I have seen this, I can't tell you if everyone can finish the marathon equivalent to business. I can't tell you that. But what I do know is that if you're committed to finishing the race, if by some reason, because at some point they shut down the race course, so many hours in, they're like, you might be able to finish, but this is shut down and you're going to be dealing with cars again. Even if for some reason you don't finish the 26.2, if you run 13, 14, or 15, everything I've seen in my life, I'm better.
Yeah.
I'm better for it. But what happens is the only reason why you can quit in the marathon at 26.2 if you don't finish the race, you can't quit because it's hard. You can only quit if you're going to the hospital or they come and say you're kicked off the course.
I literally saw a video about this the other day, and I can't remember who it was, but it was a high-level name we'd recognize. Actually, it was Tim Grover, who coached Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. He said, I get so frustrated when someone says, I'm going to try my best. He said, because you've immediately given yourself an opening by saying you're going to try your best. He said, I would rather someone say, I'm going to give it my best and fail than someone that's going to try their best, even if they succeeded at it.
That's my trigger word. Try is my trigger word.
Absolutely. And so that's what we're talking about here. Is the only good reason not to finish that 26.2 is you truly gave it everything you had. That's still a success because you're stretching that rubber band, you're pushing yourself. And that is the thing that is really the definition of resilience, is in each situation, I'm going to show up as best I can, give it the best that I have, and the results are either going to be there or they're not. You know, we could take this to the 8th place trophy, conversation of entitlement or whatever else. And I think that that's where so much of this lies. Where I've found peace and resilience is, I go back to what I say all the time. The only two things I can control are what I do and how I respond to things that happen. So it makes it a very simple plan. I don't have to create a fear narrative. I don't have to have certainty. The truth of what I know is that hundreds, if not thousands or millions of people that get up every day, do the things that they're supposed to do and that they need to do, whether they feel like it or not, have gotten the outcomes that they wanted. So all I have to do is do that thing and not create a clock.
Mm-hmm.
We get impatient. We want it now, all those types of things. So that's how, for me, I've overcome some of this is I don't try to fill in gaps, because gaps don't automatically equal some type of catastrophic event. My business is going to fail. A person hates me, whether it's a partner or a personal relationship or whatever. You have to show up, but also wait. There's some power in waiting and having some silence there. A lot of us want to fill in the gaps of uncertainty. We also want to fill in the gaps of silence. I've had to learn that everything doesn't have a polarity to it. Sometimes things can just be what they are, that there's a neutrality. And I've applied that in my business. And so all of a sudden what happens is, because I've got this extra mental margin without trying to figure out what I'm missing, that all of a sudden productivity, efficiency increases, because the only focus are, here are the things that I need to do. And it's funny because I've come to this place recently, within the last few weeks or last few months, getting up early, for example. It's probably the thing I hate to do the most, but it's also one of the biggest wins I get all day. And I used to put a frame around it of, when I got up, I had to have that negotiation with myself of if I'm going to get up or stay up or whatever. It's now no longer a negotiation. If we pair it with other things we do in life and in our business, that we don't have a choice. There is no negotiation. It's, you go do that thing. That's how I'm framing so much of what I'm doing in life and in business, is there's no longer a negotiation. It's not, do I want to do it? Can I do it? Or even will I do it? It's, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So what needs to happen is that course needs to be set when you start the damn race. See, that's what people aren't doing. I can't tell you how long the race is going to take you if you haven't run a lot before, right? I can't tell you if you're going to pull a muscle along the way. Don't know. Can't tell if you're going to get dehydrated. Don't know. But what I do know is, when you start the race, you are committed to running it at this time, finishing it here. You have this course. So often what people do is they get started and they just kind of feel it out. It's not going to work.
Right.
Because when it gets really hard, you need to reconnect back with, what did I commit to in the beginning? And so many people, this try thing, the reason why it pisses me off is because, no, I'm not trying. I'm committing. Right now I'm to what? To changing my life? Well, what's that mean? Well, everybody has to define what that is for themselves. Right. For me, it may be $10 million a year. Even though you know me well, that ain't it. Right. It might be $100 million a year. That ain't it either.
Right.
I had somebody look at me the other day and they started rolling out like, I could probably get you 20 grand a month for this thing. Or, hey, let's get on the phone and do this. And they had some insinuations. It might even be 100 grand a month. And I looked at the person and said, hey, I'm not interested.
Right.
And they looked at me. I was like, it doesn't go in line with what I'm building.
Because you're already committed to it.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get distracted. Now, if you want to have a conversation and tell me how it fits and supports and builds the thing, but I'm not going to be distracted. So many people, they're chasing squirrels, and we say squirrels because they're so fast, right? But hey, let's just say if the 20 grand a month thing or $100,000 a month thing, if that was bigger than the goal I had to change my life, and it was pretty much guaranteed that someone brought to me, then maybe we'd have a conversation. But usually it's not.
Right.
It's something else somebody wants for you. And also I'm sitting here thinking about, your life the past 2 or 3 years, all the growth I've had over the past decade or two. And I was on a podcast again with a guy yesterday. We have these big Thursdays around here. And after the podcast, I was recording some content. So the team put it together, and I'm recording happy holidays messages. One for Inside Pivot, one for my brand for TNE, one for the public from Pivot's perspective. And we got to the end a long day. I'm tired. I'm just not hitting it on this last one. And we did like 5 or 6 takes. We even have the thing. I'm throwing hissy fits. I'm coming at all my team. And I just said, what do you all want from me? And they kind of laid it out. That I said, all right. I said, give me a few minutes. I put my iPhone here. I put on some calm music. I closed my eyes and I just did this and hummed along to it, and nothing was here. And I was like, I'm going to balance my mind. I'm not this crazy meditation person. I'm not even an Eastern religious type of person with Buddha and stuff, but I just said, let me calm everything.
Yep.
Let me calm my mind. Let me calm it. And we came back on and hit it exactly like they wanted.
Yep.
We can balance and regulate how we feel, our minds.
1,000%. That's exactly what in concept I've been talking about with this neutral place. Is it's not about balance in your life. It's about balance and more neutral in your mind. It doesn't have to be feast or famine. It doesn't have to be crisis or success. That middle ground can be freeing to people. And that's one of the reasons I spend as much time talking about your personal life, your body, the spiritual, mental, physical aspect of how you can produce in business. I'm still convinced if you give me somebody with the right mindset and imperfect tactics, they're still going to get better results than someone that has a shitty mindset and the perfect tactics.
I took a screenshot here. So I'm going to read a guy that used to be on my podcast. I don't usually quote people and stuff like that, but I'm going to on this one. I hope I still have it here. A guy named Todd Herman.
Yeah, I remember Todd.
Right? He was on my podcast. He actually helped Kobe come up with his alter ego of the Black Mamba. He was the dude who did that. I took a screenshot. So Todd Herman, I'm sure we're going to tag him. Kudos on the post you made, I believe, on Facebook today. But he said, you can take an amazing person and put them inside a bad system, and they'll have a hard time performing. You can take an average person and put them inside a phenomenal system, and they will get results way beyond what their capabilities are. Start looking at your systems. That's where the real leverage is. So what most people don't have is they haven't built a good system themselves.
That's exactly right. They don't have to be complicated. We hear system and we think it's this overcomplication of automation if it's in business, or in our life, we have to have all this tracking. The system can be something as simple as, here are the 3 or 4 things that are non-negotiable that I'm going to do for me and my business every single day.
See, that's it.
That's it.
That's it. So I think, what is the importance of having a coach? Identify what those are.
Yeah.
Because if you're someone who doesn't want to do them, you're not going to be honest with yourself that these things have to happen.
Yeah. I tell pretty much everyone I talk to in that conversation before them committing to some type of a coaching program, there's not anything that I can teach you, show you, or coach you on that you couldn't figure out on your own in time. My job as a coach is to identify blind spots, identify points of friction, and potentially speed up that growth curve, as well as to hold you accountable to the things you want to be held accountable to. A coach isn't any coach that says, I have this thing that you don't know and you're not going to find, the silver bullet, the magic pill. They're snake oil salesmen, because that's just not true. Sometimes it's take a third-party perspective that understands where you're at and say, you know what? We just need to take this out, move this, whatever. And that's what I spend the far majority of my time talking about with clients, is what you're doing on a daily basis. Is it serving what it is you're trying to do? Yes, it can get very tactical in that process, but that's why M1 Academy is about mindset first, because so many people have these incredible lists of things that they aspire to, or all of these tactical things they want to do. But to your point, they're not in the right headspace to execute them at any level. Sometimes it's, you know what, let's pull these out for a second. Let's get really good at these to where you have some margin to add something back in. That's what I think a coach is for. You can use coach, mentor, whatever you want to do. It's someone that will tell you the truth in a way and frame it that it's not punitive. It's not a judgment. It's factually as an assessment. This is where you're at. This is where you're not at. Now let's go fix it.
If it's this simple, why doesn't everyone do it?
It's belief. We put people on a pedestal. We try to overcomplicate how they got there to make ourselves feel better about why we haven't. I won't get specific on this person in my life, on family, extended family, whatever, that very intelligent person, but always talked really negatively about people that had money or had success in business or all these other things. But we knew the truth of the situation is that was this person's way of making excuse for what they hadn't done. I think that that's why we don't just go do it. We're afraid to lose what we have to get what we want. And there has to be more to it. I don't believe that it's just that simple.
Yeah, I don't believe it's as simple as fear. You know, everyone's going here. The gurus talk about it. People that are in this self-help space. Here's why I don't think it's just fear. I don't just make these definitive statements. I say, okay, in the moments in my life that I didn't do the thing that was necessary to get the outcome I want, what was it? I know it was all feelings. I know I was all in my head. I was overthinking the thing, right? I was looking around. So I think we have to get rid of fear, because it's not like me looking at the line and think I'm going to be eaten. The fear it's the fear of judgment. So I'm like, why is that? Why do we fear, and I would say even care about what the people think about us if they aren't directly helping me in my business and in my life every day?
Correct.
Right? So I'm trying to figure, why is that? And I'm like, well, we must do something to ourselves. And I went down this path of saying, well, why would I judge? And I was like, wait a minute, we have to stop judging ourselves. We have to stop talking negatively to ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have to stop giving away our own self-esteem or our self-worth to other people or the world. And so what I've realized is this is all within us. We're projecting it on the outside world. Those people, for the most part, they aren't even paying enough attention. So what we're projecting is, that's how I would feel.
When we judge other people, it's because we judge ourselves.
Damn straight it is.
And I think you and I probably talked about this before, but I talk about this in workshops and even put out content recently on these two things. As soon as we stop judging ourselves, we now will no longer judge other people.
You know why?
Because we don't need to.
You don't see it that way anymore.
It's now an assessment of what the facts are.
That's it.
The other thing is, I literally say, if someone's not helping you pay your bills or helping you build your business or helping you achieve your goals, why do you care what they think? So when someone says, I don't care what anybody thinks, that's not true.
I agree with you. We're trying to fight back and make ourselves believe, right?
Correct.
If you're someone who doesn't care what people think, you take massive action in spite of it, and you don't have to talk about it.
That's right. Other thing that I am going to push back a little bit on this fear conversation. It is all, at the end of the day, this blanket term fear. I'm not talking about a lion's going to eat me fear, or that I'm going to be homeless fear. Fear can also show up as insecurity, meaning I'm a little bit afraid of what people might think. Fear can also show up as, am I actually capable?
You're not going to be able to prove it unless you go and do the work.
The frame around it goes back to uncertainty and fear are, I think, pretty synonymous, but it all comes down to not being sure, not having the self-confidence, self-worth, self-image, self-belief, however, whatever, again, cliche you want to use.
You know what I'm sure of, though? I'm sure that when I sit down and I think about the vision of the goals for my life that I want, I'm sure about those.
1,000%.
And so since I'm sure about those, that's what people need to get right with. Since I'm sure about those, then I can just quickly reverse engineer what I need to do to get them. See, the game's, I've already won the game.
Right.
All I have to do is just go do the work. Don't have any feelings about when it doesn't go well. And also, don't have feelings when you win a small little race too. That's why I don't like the accolades. I don't take recognition well. Because I don't feel like I'm there. The other day, I walked into a big podcast environment and a huge branded studio. And after the podcast, one of the guys, this executive producer guy, looks at me, who we hadn't met before. He said, man, that was really good. And I just kind of brushed it by. And he said, no, you don't understand what you just did here. People aren't able to do it. And I said, well, thanks. He's like, wow, you don't do well with accolades. You don't take, I said, no. And a lot of people think that's negative. Maybe it's something, but I just looked at him. I said, hey man, here's the thing. I just know I got to be careful. I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Got to be careful I don't get high on my own supply.
Right.
You get high on your own supply, you're probably not going to keep pressing as much because you're not needing to feed the beast, because you might feel like, God.
And that's because you already have the belief. For people that don't yet have that belief,
what belief?
That they're capable of achieving the big goal.
Yeah, I don't know if I am, but what I know is I know what the goal is. This is it. I don't know.
Your belief in the goal.
Yeah, my belief that I want this.
Yeah.
Right? And I want to live that life. I want to be the human being that can have it. And so then what I know is I've got no shot at it unless I take massive action every day.
And I know that you are that way, 1,000%. What I'm talking about is for people that aren't there.
Well, let's get them there.
Our job, that's what I'm saying. Our job is to help them get there.
Damn straight.
And the only way that I've been able to frame it where I've seen light bulbs go off is if I was to say to you, in 5 years, you're going to have $1 million a year W-2 or the house or car or person of your dreams or whatever. You're for sure going to have it if you do these 3 or 4 things every single day without fail. Would you do it? And everyone's like, of course I would. But my thing is that that's what they're giving up by not doing it. And the reason they don't do it is they don't have the belief it's going to happen for them. So here's where our philosophies differ in helping other people get there. Because when you frame it that way, whether they will or won't, they understand conceptually. And so when they know that's what they're giving up, that will get them to at least take some action. You may not need the accolades because the belief is there, but when someone gets some results and gets some wins, it starts to build that belief. From very early on, knowing your story, both personally and professionally, you had some validation or some wins that you're like, okay, I don't need that anymore because I now know if I go do the work, these things are going to happen. Even if I don't know for sure, there's something in there that's going to happen.
If someone can't take good coaching and listen to someone who actually knows the path, if you're uncoachable, you probably are really far away from being able to help yourself.
Right.
So you got to be coachable. So this isn't about me seeing it. Obviously, at some point in my past, I was coachable. I listened to the people that came before me. This isn't just I realized something. Somebody I was around, some form of responsibility. I said, okay, there it is. People in this world aren't coachable, whatever the hell the reason is. Here's what I've realized. Most people, this is you, this is everyone. If you aren't on the true path to accomplish your dreams and the vision for your life in a short period of time, in the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, if you're not already on that path, you've heard it enough. This isn't the first time they've heard this shit.
Agreed.
They've read the books. They've gone to the conferences. Here's the issue that I've seen. For some reason, people are so short-sighted that they need it now. If I don't get it in 30 days, I'm probably 5 years is too long, unfortunately. 3 years is too long. Even though all these people listening, they either spent 4 years getting a damn college undergrad degree and you paid for it, or you're talking to your kids and be like, hey, you either need to go get a 4-year degree. I'm even going to pay for it. I don't know what you're going to get out of it. There's no certainty there.
Right.
Or they say, you need to go be an apprentice and become an electrician. That's 3 or 4 years. So why in the world is this any different? Becoming a loan officer, becoming a realtor. So if you have to go through a 3 or 4 year degree just to say maybe you'll have a shot at getting it, why do you think becoming an elite professional, making good 6 figures, is any different than a 3 or 4 year commitment? But here's the deal. It's why they take it semester by semester, class by class. So unfortunately, I don't love this. Unfortunately, there needs to be some type of a daily system. People call it habits, they call it discipline, but until you develop the habits and the discipline yourself as a human, that you can make yourself get up and do it, you have to get involved in I don't have a coaching system where they can pay me. That's awesome, right? Because I'm not promoting anything. But they have to get involved in something that they can have some accountability system on a daily basis.
Yep.
And that is if whatever that looks like for that individual, that probably doesn't even matter what guru they go to, what coach they go to. Somebody that says, do this thing today, and we don't talk about 5 years too much.
That's the whole reason that I'm talking about these 3 to 4 things on a daily basis. You know my system well enough. I coach on daily habits and non-negotiables. The way you get there is big goals, milestones, short-term goals, and then attach activities to it. But the thing about this is those are about also creating the belief. So when you said, hey, they're just not going to do it, my question to you is, why not?
Because they can't feel it. Unfortunately, it's about feelings again. I talked to one of our sales manager, sales director last week, and he's responsible for having these pods and coaching new realtors up and stuff. And I said, hey man, listen, here's all we got to get them to. There's a 78% quitting rate.
Yeah, not
in
failure
this business,
rate.
right? Every 18 months, you get in the business. If 1,000 people got in the business today, the stats are somewhere in the 70-something percentile. National Association of Realtors says 70-something% of people quit the business. That's a problem,
Right.
right? And so I'm like, what's the problem? It's the belief thing and all. And so I said, dude, you just got to get them to a commission check quick. Just one.
The result.
Get them to that 6 or 8 grand to feel that thing. And at that moment, we don't have to tell them if it was worth it or not. Their brain will tell them, but at least they have the result.
Absolutely.
So we got to build a system that at least has the feeling and the thing like, oh, you mean I did all this and I received this, and it makes sense to me. The more I do it, the more efficient I'm going to become. Wow. This seems like an amazing exchange for my time versus dollars.
So when you were talking about a coach, a guru, someone to say, here's what you need to do today. Here's the plan for the next 5 days. Go do these things, whether you call them daily habits, whether they're tactics, whatever. That's external accountability, right? That's the job of a boss, a mentor, a coach. At some point in time, what you're talking about, this whole thing of having to decide, I'm going to go do this thing, it switches from external accountability to internal accountability. You now no longer need someone to tell you what to do. You say, I'm going to go do it. That is the silver bullet, magic pill, whatever you want to call it. That's how elite people have become elite, is they no longer need someone outside to tell them, this is what you need to do today. And so if people want to know what the shortcut is, great, go find a coach, go find a guru. I don't love if people coach with me for years and years. From a revenue side, sure, that's great. But if they need me to continue to tell them week after week, here's the things to go to do, that means they've never switched from external accountability to internal accountability, and they're going to get some result.
But at some point, it's going to come to an end.
That's right.
Right. What I see from the best, you can speak from the mortgage standpoint. I think you coach some realtors as well, but mostly in the mortgage space.
Agreed.
Right. What I see is the most successful realtors. The reason why this is a 3 to 5 year gig to build a career is the most successful ones build a referral business.
That's right.
Right. And what that is they aren't just transactional. They don't just have to cold call nonstop and get new leads. They lean in so much to becoming an elite individual so they can be an elite representative. So the customers they touch are like, wow, this was a different level of an experience.
That's right.
So that then this referral business just compounds and compounds. If you're a person that has to grind and cold call your whole life, I don't know anyone. I've never met them. One person will make some stupid comment on this, right? But I don't know any human being that the thing they love is just a cold call. The thing they loved is a prospect. They love to go do business development. No, you might love to talk to people, but you don't actually love that closing process.
Because it's linear.
It sucks.
Yeah. So there's two quick things on this. I'm glad we're transitioning to this, especially the referral piece. I have a client that came to me. He worked for one of the big lead shops that just does cold outbound calls, right? Go look at one of the top lenders in the country. You can figure out, what it is. But was a top 1%er at one of the top mortgage companies in the country, went to a mortgage broker, a more of a mortgage company model, continued just to buy tens of thousands of leads. And when he came to me after about 5 years, having made a ton of money, said, listen, I've got about 80,000 leads in my database, my daily routine. He had his habits that were making him successful. He said, I have, outbound phone calls, text messages, voicemail drive. I do that every day to try to, quote, get a sale, get a deal. But every single day I have to do the same thing over and over. But I see people all the time that aren't doing this, that are crushing it way harder than I am. What are they doing? And that was the conversation is, well, at some point in time, you've got to go from just lead generation to some attraction lead generation, some attraction marketing, large part based on referrals from referral partners, from your sphere of influence. He's having to make that transition, doing it extremely successfully. And I'll give a side note before I get to the point. He texted me, I think it was last week or the week before, and said, I pulled 15 credit reports the last 2 days, and only one of them might qualify, but I'm not sure if I can. I'm gonna have to push the deal through. I'm really frustrated. And I told him, I was like, let's pause for a second. Do you know how many people in the mortgage business would kill to have taken 15 applications in the last 2 days, to have 15 credit reports pulled? What that shows me is that you're doing the right things. You can't control whether they can qualify. You can control, did you do enough effort to do it? Because you don't know if the next 2 days you pull 15 and 14 of them get qualified. As we're talking about this referral business, one of the things I've actually learned, or at least this frame around referrals, why do people refer other people versus someone else? In today's day and age, people refer professionals that make them look good. And I thought about that for a second. If we refer a book, a movie, a restaurant, a bar, a service provider, our intention is we're going to look good by making that referral because they're going to do a great job and make them look good. And it sounds very simple, but when you frame it like that, it's like, okay, great. If I want more referrals, what do I need to do to show up and make that person look good?
You have to bring more value than other people in your same space.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right.
And that value is usually the feel of the experience.
It is. And it's the human element of it. Right?
What do we complain about doctors?
They have no bedside manner.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All of them went through med school. They got a medical license. But yet we determine if we like the doctor or not based on bedside manner.
100%.
It's the same of all of our experiences. We go to a place called Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse here, right? I'm sure that there are as good as steaks now around the country. They're not the only one that can make good steaks, right? But it's about the experience.
That's right.
It's about the service. It's about when you're eating bread, because I love to eat bread down there, and they bring basket after basket. And the crumbs, they come around really quick.
Rake up the crumbs.
Dang straight.
That's right.
Right.
So I had an experience like that with a steakhouse that to kind of reinforce this point. It's been several years ago, and it has, in a lot of big cities, they have a location. I just never been there. There's, on this intersection, there's probably 8 like 4-star steakhouses. And it was a special occasion, showing up, walking in. I'd made a reservation beforehand, and through, I think it was Open Table. You can check if it's a special occasion.
Always a special occasion with you.
Absolutely, 100%. It was actually a legitimate special occasion this time. Going in, the hostess, whenever I gave the name for the reservation, immediately gave, the congratulations or happy whatever. Thought, that's kind of cool. Sat down. The server assistant that came and gave us water also said it. They immediately brought out, and actually when we got there, had some like sprinkle celebration on the table, immediately brought out like a card and some complimentary drinks. The actual server came up, said it again, and said, here's some things we're going to do for you. In addition to drinks, you're going to get a dessert, all these other types of things. And the experience was just incredible. Not too far into the meal, the general manager comes around and said, hey, wished us the same thing, and said, is there anything that I can do for you? I'd like to give you my card. My personal cell phone's on here. If there's anything you need, please let me know. And I said, I have a question for you. He said, sure. And this is in Dallas, Texas, mind you. I said, I've been to a lot of steakhouses, but like, this experience has been incredible. I was like, I'm just curious, is this kind of the norm, or did we just get lucky or what? And he said, no. He said, what we know is, especially in Texas, you can go anywhere and get an incredible steak. So we focus on everything else. And I immediately, 80% of the time I went to a steakhouse, went back to that place. And I think that's a really good metaphor for what you're talking about. Anyone can fill out a purchase contract or a listing agreement. Anyone can put a sign in a yard. On the mortgage side, anyone can take an application, quote an interest rate, whatever. All of the other stuff is what makes the difference. On the mortgage side, if someone called and said, hey, so-and-so referred me, or I'm wanting to buy a house or get pre-qualified or whatever, I tell everyone, stop for a second, say, oh, real quick, we're going to get all your questions answered. But first, congratulations that you're in the home buying journey. And I say it with a smile, because even if you're on the phone, they can hear that. And then ask them, what's important about this home purchase for you? Or what's significant about you becoming a first-time home buyer? And ask a few of those questions for two reasons. One, you're actually identifying the real reason that they're buying a house. People don't just buy a house or get a mortgage just to get into debt or to have a piece of real estate. There's typically an underlying reason. And as soon as you find out that reason, you can then say, hey, I appreciate you sharing that, because now I know the right strategy to put together for you. And even if they go talk to one of your competitors, if that competitor doesn't have the same type of conversation, and they won't, I don't care what kind of deal they're giving you, in the back of their mind, they're like, but are they actually helping me get this thing that I want? And that's what we're talking about here. It doesn't have to be some crazy extra add-on service or software, or all those are great and they can help. But it's in terms of, have you connected with the human to the point where they're like, you know what? I enjoy this. I'm comfortable doing this. This person understands what I want, what I need, and they're going to help me get there.
You consistently see, so a guy, one of the best college coaches of any sport is Gino Auriemma. I think he has more championships than anybody, even John Wooden, I think. UConn women's basketball. Yep. If it's not the most, it's a lot. He said what he has found over the years. Like, he's a real direct guy. He's this Italian dude, right? He said he has broken it down to there's two reasons why people don't do something. I'm going to tie it back to a willingness or ability to deliver this elite service. You've heard me say this, I think, but it's the two things he's identified. And he said, keep in mind, UConn women's basketball has established a brand. We already get the best of the best.
Right.
So we get the ones that already have incredible ability. They've shown on the floor their prowess in high school, or they've recruited from overseas. They're already the best of the best. And he said, sometimes we still have problems with them performing. And so through all this strife and figuring it out, he said, I found out there's two reasons why my players, but then coaches, why they don't do something. Number one is because they don't know how. Or number two, because they just don't feel like it. So what I say is, I haven't heard them say, I took a step further when I'm training people or putting on classes, hey, you all, of those two, which one does Gino Auriemma want them to say? They don't know how, or they don't feel like it. What's he want his players to say?
Oh, how?
Right, because he's a coach and he can teach it, right? And he kind of knows that's not true, but he also can rely on their ability has been so good in these other areas, he can probably teach them up really quick. But what do you think happens to an elite coach like that when they just don't feel like it? I'm assuming they're thrown out of practice, they're sitting on a bench, they don't get any more engagement in being a significant part of that team until... And he talks about this next level too. He said, if I pull you out of the game, because you had a turnover, or you created a foul, you didn't do something well, and you go sit on the bench. He said, if you sit on the end of that bench and you're scowling or frown, he said, you will not get back in the game. What you better do is, even though that happened to you, you better cheer for what's happening on the floor, about attitude, right? So what he has realized is almost all of us have some ability to perform at an elite level. We're not talking about college athletics. So what I would say is, I'm asking the question, but what have you seen? Does this align with loan officers willing to put forward this level of effort? Because it is significant effort to be different and elite. Is it they're not willing because they don't feel like it? Because it's not a priority enough for their wife? Because all these other things are going on? Or they truly don't know how? Can it fit into those categories?
Absolutely it can.
Because it does for realtors.
It does. The short answer is they're not willing, right? They just don't feel like it. They don't want to.
You know what? They shouldn't be in the business.
Agreed. But here's the thing. I believe truly, and I don't know what percentage, call it 50%, call it 3/4, but it's not less than 50% of those people that are unwilling, that just don't want to do it for whatever reason, have it framed in their mind that they don't know how to.
You hear that all the time.
See,
I instantly call bullshit on it.
Immediately. And here's the thing. It goes back to excuses. You've heard me talk about this a lot. Opposite of success isn't failure. Opposite of success is excuses. And John Maxwell is who says that. He's like, because you can succeed from failure, you can't succeed from excuses, which it's a profound statement if people really unpack it. But that's the thing, is they're making an excuse. I don't know how to do this thing. But when you peel back the layers, again, as a coach, that's part of my job is say, what about it do you not know how to do?
I'll show you.
You start peeling back the layers. And I would say 9 out of 10 times, it's not that they don't there's a part of it, maybe legitimately they don't know how to, but they're not willing to go figure it out. A lot of times it's around technology or social media. They've got it built up in their mind. It's more complicated than it is. Or this is how I've always done it, so this is how I always want to do it. And they blame their lack of results of, I don't know how to do those things. But the truth of the matter, they're just not willing to go figure it out.
So here, it's the reason why your company is called M1 Academy Mindset First, right?
100%.
How many people that you coach does it end the way both of you want? Like, let's just talk honest here. How many does it end the way that they said they wanted and that you wanted when it started? Because I'm going to talk to you about my company and realtor successes.
For clarification, in the way they wanted in terms of growth or the ultimate goal that they had.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you align their goal on a first conversation and a call, right? So after that first call, once you kind of get acquainted and establish some I guess, guardrails, how often does that person succeed? And this isn't about you. I'm going somewhere about people, but we need to use this. How often does that person get the outcome they want within the time frame they wanted it?
That's tough.
Want me to take it first?
Yeah, go ahead and take it first. Because here's the thing, I want to fragment it out. I would say there's people that actually go take action on the things we talked about.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about.
Right. So let me do that. There's some people that aren't doing it. I'll set those aside for a second. We can unpack that.
Okay. Because I don't think we should, because that's a percentage. That's a part of the percentage.
I agree. I'm going to include it in the percentage. Right. Then you have, of the people that are taking action, probably 60% are getting some growth, are getting results, are moving the needle where they feel good about it. But just like you said earlier, they feel like they have it figured out, so they're not continuing to lean in. And then you probably have 10 or 20% of the whole number that are actually crushing it at the level where they're really leaning into their goals. They're kicking goals.
So you say leaning in. We just didn't say ability. We didn't see characteristics. No. We said leaning in.
Well, again, because the criteria that I use, again, walking into I assume what your tie down was here, is the first thing I have to decide in my mind as I'm going through who did what we said we were going to, like the plan, and who didn't. And then of the people who did, how many people did it at the level that they needed to achieve the big goal.
It's why a coach who is willing to confront you and not people please you, and the coach who is willing to call you out on the bullshit you're not doing, is the elite type of coach you need. The best coaches in the world, from the sports analogy we always make, but you can even take it from a musical perspective. Go into a top symphony in a city and see how that director, see how they engage with the person who's the first seat in the they're not putting up with any bullshit.
Yep.
The amount of practice. When you come there, if you're not playing that piece exactly the right way, you're going to the second seat and the next person's coming in. Mm-hmm. But what you'll see is that's tied down to the level of effort and the commitment that person has to play the instrument at that elite level. And what I love is is that whoever your leader or coach or boss or mentor is, if they see you giving significant effort, they're going to fight for you.
100%.
Right? And so this is the piece that nobody wants to know is if you want somebody to fight for you and they're just not giving me the attention I deserve and all that, you don't deserve it.
That's right.
Because if the person that you're paying or the person that's making a profit with you when you're succeeding, if that person sees you giving elite effort, what they know is that will lead to big results.
Absolutely. And it's funny too, because one-on-one clients specifically, part of what I offer is, okay, we have these regular 60-minute one-on-one calls, but you have full access to me. If you need something, have a question, reach out. You can even schedule an additional call if needed, whatever. And I would say that 3/4 of people don't take advantage of that. Some people do take advantage of it. Those are typically the ones that are getting better results than others, for the record. And again, this client that I was talking about that's transitioning from just this working leads to referral business, I would say I hear from him every 48 hours, if for no other reason to kind of give updates on what's happening. But he asks some of the best questions. And to your point, I give way more time to him than I probably do any other client, because the potential that he has and the work that he's doing is exactly what I would love everyone to do.
Yeah, that's it. And I've never had any type of a program. Who knows if I ever do? I don't know, man. I'm just trying to build my company. I'm not doing anything outside of it. You look at any of these programs, almost every one I've seen, any mortgage coach, any real estate coach, I look at them like, yeah, that would work. Me knowing what I know now, I look at all of them and I'm like, that might be too complicated, or they might be or that's too, but I look at them and I'm like, tactics work. The tactics is and those people want success. They want the testimonials. They want to say they have a percentage success rate. What I know consistently is like when these elite colleges, they're like, this percentage of our graduates go on to have these degrees. When there's somebody that's getting in the real estate business, you can do all your pre-licensure somewhere. And like, we have a 92% success pass rate after we look at reviews and testimonials. These people that you're paying money to, they want you to win.
That's right.
100%.
Yep.
Right? It seems so simple to me. And as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm like being the person who's going to listen in. And I'm always like, okay, what are the practical steps? Right? Because we are talking some stuff about mindset, and it's true. If this stuff hits on somebody and they get pissed, well, guess what? You got a bad mindset.
That's right.
You got a bad attitude, right? And you're probably not going to achieve big. You got a bad attitude in life, that's the one thing that's going to hold you back.
100%.
If you come into an environment and you're like, that's not for me, or this other person did it that way, or you're having to do too much, then go find your damn thing. Because what you're going to find is most likely you're going to find a bunch of loss.
100%. Yeah. They go from industry to industry, job to job,
or
the same thing.
company to company, bank to bank, mortgage broker to mortgage broker. Real estate broker to more real estate broker. I had one of my agents years ago that's still with us. And I said still with us because I saw this stat the other day from NAR. I actually put it in AI. And I said, how many realtors every year change brokerages? I mean, I was even blown away by the number. And it said, well, we don't have exact numbers. We don't have exact numbers. But on average, keep in mind there's 1.2 or 1.3 million agents. On average, every agent changes brokerage every 4 years.
I bet your mortgage is that or a little quicker.
What does your brain say what does it do when I say that?
That it goes back to excuses and blame. No one's taking accountability for why they're not at where they're at in business. Because that's what I found in mortgage, and I would assume it's the same in real estate. Those people that are career job hoppers, they're constantly jumping around and blaming their lack of success on whatever system or environment that they're in. But to your point, you said...
Because here's what the agent said, and I'll hand it to you. She said, you know what they don't know? They got to take themselves with them.
Yes, that's 1,000% right. You could talk about, growing up, I remember the church hoppers. Like they would, that's hypocritical, and it'd go on and on and on. As someone that spent half of his 22, 23-year career recruiting, developing, hiring, coaching, whatever, mortgage professionals, the very first thing that we do ever is pull up NMLS Consumer Access, because it's public record available to anyone, every company they work for in the month and year they transitioned. And some of them you see just a normal, hey, over 20-year career, maybe they've worked a handful of places. And then you say some, and you have to click a little drop-down button, and it's like a book opens up. When that happens, short of maybe a company got acquired, you kind of filter through, but very quickly you see this person jumps from company to company, or because a lot of times in the mortgage business, when you make a transition, they'll pay you a guarantee or a non-recoverable draw for a few months, and they jump from guarantee to guarantee, draw to draw, whatever else.
You know whose fault this is, though?
Industries.
Damn straight.
100%.
I blame brokers. Because broker, what you should do is, and I mean, this is hard. This is the game I'm building with Pivot, right? I'm leaning into people to try to develop people and trying to confront them on these things. But these people who just recruit nonstop, they're like, well, people are going to leave and they're going to come. They prey on this shit. They prey on the vulnerable people who won't hold themselves accountable. And they're like, well, here's how much they're probably going to make. This is my investment. It's an algorithm. And those human beings, unfortunately, because they're going to get exactly what they don't want.
That's exactly right.
They're going to be a commodity is all they're going to be.
I worked for a company, and to this day, they're still probably a top 5 bank in the country. Like everyone would know who this bank is. Had 20 different business lines. One of them was home mortgage. Ironically, they're not even in the retail home. They don't have retail loan officers for mortgage anymore. But at the time, one of every 3 mortgage transactions in the entire country went through one of their wholesale, retail, correspondent business lines, whatever. And their model for recruiting was for every, let's say 10 people we hire and spend X amount of dollars on every one, these 3 are going to be gone within 12 months. These 3 or 4 are going to stick around. We'll probably make our money back, but they're not a long-term thing. But out of 10, we're going to hire 1, 2, 3. They're going to stick around long enough that we make some money on them. And at, even smaller percentages that stay for a long time.
See, you're telling the truth because you were in management and talking about that stuff. I knew it.
At the time of this particular company, I wasn't in management, but I was close enough with my managers to understand the model.
Here's what I'm going to say. Unfortunately, all 10 of those people that got into the business that did one mortgage could have been the success. Every single one of them.
Well, and the caveat to that is in that situation, it wasn't 10. I owned a little small mortgage brokerage, and their recruiting thing at the time, because we're right in the middle of financial crisis, 2008, 7, 8,
Mm-hmm.
They were doing recruit by acquisition. They would find little shops like mine, throw enough money at them to get them to bring their team over. They knew only a certain number would last. I quadrupled my production. It took me 3 or 4 months to kind of get my bearings, found my little edge, and almost no other broker that went at the same time I did lasted near as long. I found, okay, if I do what I've always done and then use some of these advantages, we'll roll with it. Now, fast forward in my career when I was more of a regional VP national director role, someone had reached out from one of the most well-known, really good independent mortgage companies. The guy that I got on to interview with, they actually had booked my plane tickets to talk to the owner of the company. He's a well-known guy, former pro football player, whatever. But I talked to one of the, next level down from him in the company. I'd interviewed through a few different people. And this guy kind of dismissed our conversation in terms of, I had very formal conversations and interviews with him. He's like, oh, well, I'm on my way to my cabin. I'll just talk to him in the car. Like, wasn't really that enthralled with having a conversation with me. And one of the questions he asked to this point is he said, what's your monthly over under hire rate? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I've been doing this 15, 16 years at that time. Like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. He's like, well, you hire a certain number of people in your region.
What's your net every month?
Exactly. You lose. What's the net there? And I was like, listen, I don't have that attrition. I've been with this company 6 years. Not one loan officer that I've hired that stayed longer than 90 days has ever quit. They either found out this wasn't a fit for them, or I found out they weren't a fit for us and cut, but not one person in that time had quit. And we were doing hundreds of millions of dollars in our region. And that was where I tied those two conversations together. I'm like, as an industry, we have a really bad problem of recruit at any expense, even at the fact of these other people are going to use these tactics and take our own people away from us.
So then how do we lean in as a mortgage broker, real estate broker in the recruiting, but I would say even development game? So we're talking about loan officers, but if somebody's operating a shop with 5 LOs, 10 LOs, 5 or 10 or 15, how can they compete against the big money, right? It's like Wall Street versus Main Street.
This is going to sound like a canned answer, and it's not. You have to help those people get what they want.
Help who?
Those 5 or 10 people you have in your shop. Again, the cliche is the Zig Ziglar, help enough other people get what they want, you get what you want. But it's a cliche because it's truth. It makes it a cliche because it's just been said over and over without the underlying meaning. In this example, and I see it all the time, of people that reach out to have me do a webinar or come in and do a speaking event, I'll go into these smaller companies that I'm like, this is a quality elite level company. Like, your average production per LO is like through the roof of the industry average. And when you peel back the layers, they've created a system where they are helping each one of their people succeed at what they want. And it's flexible enough to do that. And they're in turn having a lot of success. But every company, and I've even worked for some that have this magic thing
as they grow,
and they get to this point that they lose that DNA. And it happens all the time. And again, and I don't blame the ownership in terms of if you've been grinding at building your thing for 20 years, 30 years, whatever.
Who are you talking about, Phil?
I'm not talking about you. I'm saying on the mortgage side. I want to qualify that there. Someone's got a guilty conscience, it sounds like.
Well, no, it's the truth.
And someone comes along and is willing to like give you this huge windfall of cash to reward you for your efforts. It's really hard not to do that. So I get it. That's just the nature of the beast.
Here's the nature of the beast. It's called human nature.
It is. Humans are the beasts. And I'm not saying that we should never be selfish. I'm saying that there's times to be selfish and times to not. When you're in the growth cycle of a company, or a team, I don't care if it's a team, your business, it's just you, whatever level. In those growth cycles, you can't be selfish unless you're talking about being selfish about doing the things that I want to do and I'm pushing out the noise. As soon as you have a team, as soon as you have people, you've got to cater to those people at a certain level in terms of telling them the truth about what they need to do to succeed, right? I think it was an Alex Hormozy video that I watched recently. No, it was Nick Saban. Again, these are elite level thinkers.
Yeah.
There's only people I'm paying attention to on social media right now. Nick Saban was, it looked like he was speaking to a banquet of some kind. We know Nick Saban's one of the elite athletic coaches. He was standing in front of a group of people and he said, if you're not telling your people the hard truth that they need to know, and if you're coddling them and trying to protect them from that, you're making a massive mistake and don't even know it. We've seen those videos of Nick Saban, like Lane Kiffin's a huge well-known coach. And whenever he was assistant, like, oh, I saw some, disagreements or something on the sideline. And he's like, that wasn't a disagreement. That was an ass chewing, right? He tells people the hard truth. And I think that's what I'm talking about of being unselfish, like selfishly, like I don't want to tell people the truth because what if they don't like me or what if it hurts their feelings? That's a time where you can't be selfish. You've got to do what's right for your team and for your business.
I mean, can we stop talking about the mortgage business? Damn. But anyway, I'm kidding.
No, absolutely.
But let's talk about a little bit of this entrepreneurial experience that you've been through for 5 or 10 minutes here about the journey.
Yeah.
About Phil Treadwell going from production, coaching, production, inside brokerages, salaries, commission, that steady life to the hopes and the dreams and the vision on I can crush this and this entrepreneurial thing is going to be awesome. Talk about this journey over the past 3 years. Boy, it's set in.
Where to even begin?
That deep.
Yeah.
Because here's what I've seen when you say it. I have actually seen you travel the journey that I had to go through, that almost every entrepreneur goes through.
Yeah.
So,
what I would say is I've always been entrepreneurial and
what's the distinct difference between entrepreneurial and entrepreneur?
An entrepreneur is someone that owns a business and the only way they make income, the only way that is through that business that they're in control of. Entrepreneurial is the same characteristics that an entrepreneur has, you have, but the buck doesn't stop with you.
Got the safety nets, man.
100%. What I realized is that I was entrepreneurial within the companies I worked for, and I had businesses that I owned on the side, but I was never a true entrepreneur because I had the safety net of this other thing over here that I'd established for a long period of time. So going into full entrepreneurship wasn't necessarily as scary and foreign until I don't want to say the newness wears off, but whenever things start smacking you in the face that you don't necessarily have control of, and then things start smacking you in the face that you're like, yeah, I just screwed up really bad there, personally and professionally. You have, because we're right at 3 years, maybe a little over 3 years since the start of the company. And year one, it was guns blazing, it's new, it's exciting. People are attracted to it because, again, it was a new shiny object, whatever. And year two, what I found out is that initial batch of people were the same people that anytime a new coaching thing comes out or a new program comes out are the ones that jump there, but they don't stick because they're not doing the work, so they jump from thing to thing. I made the mistake of trying to scale based on something I had that I didn't really have. Year two, that starts to unravel, but you're trying to be like, no, we'll fix this and we're still going to continue to grow and figure out how to scale and whatever. And then year three, this last year, has been one, admitting the hard truths to ourselves, admitting the hard truths to myself, not only about what the business was and business wasn't, but about my strengths and weaknesses as an operator. my strengths and weaknesses as a practitioner. Part of this challenge, and probably one of the biggest flaws that I've realized with me, is that there's part of my life, and when I say life, I mean personal, professional, everything. There's part of it that I have these really strong skills, these really strong talents and abilities, and I thought that they were being used in all areas of my life, and they weren't. And you could list all the qualities of, honesty, confidence, work ethic, all the things we use to describe humans. This area that I thought, hey, I'm doing really good in this, I thought that they were being carried over to here. Something as simple as identifying patterns made me an incredible coach. So I'm like, oh, I'm good at identifying patterns over here. This, like we said in the beginning, this must be true. And it wasn't, because I had all these weaknesses that I was ignoring.
So when you're entrepreneurial, you get away with them.
Right.
Here's why you get away with them: because somebody else has that money flow and you got a job, the paycheck's still there. There's not as much pressure, right? But the issue with being a true entrepreneur is when the other parts of your life aren't going well, it directly impacts this. And when it directly impacts this, affects your attitude. Your attitude impacts your daily rituals, your daily habits. And it's all one, and it's like, holy shit, I'm responsible for it all.
Yeah.
You have to develop, you and me and everyone else, to be a successful entrepreneur where you're thriving financially, to live a life better than being an employee. Because don't think, if you're making the same money as an entrepreneur, I will push back on the gurus on this. If you're an entrepreneur making the same money than as an employee, I don't see hardly anybody that's as happy.
Right.
You've got to be pursuing something, because there's so much more pressure on all the things you have to do before you have the revenue to hire people to do those things.
That's right.
Right. And so what happens is, when what personal life is going bad, when you're an employee, for the most part, you can still pull it off.
Right.
You can probably perform at a level high enough to where the business will still pay you. But every single level of performance in your job when you're the entrepreneur affects the bottom line.
Absolutely. And I think that was the thing too, is as a true entrepreneur, you have to focus both. It's not necessarily 100% equally, but you have to give a lot of focus to both working in the business and on the business.
Have to in the beginning.
Have to. I started working on the business and started stepping out of the business way, way too early. And by the time I realized it, I didn't just have to pick up where I left off. I had to go back down. It wasn't to zero, but I had to go back down and do it. And then there's a period of time where I had to just work in the business because we'd already made certain financial commitments. We're already timeline, whatever. So it was this thing of, had I continued to focus on both, we'd have had a different growth curve. But when I started pulling out of working in the business and started focusing on, when I figured that out, now I have a disproportionate working in versus on. And both of those slow things down. Again, we've righted the ship, and I would say from a revenue level, the last 90, 120 days has been better than the entire beginning part of the year for a whole lot of reasons. But I want to say this, that I think doesn't get talked about enough with entrepreneurship. You've also got to be the type of human that can be an entrepreneur. It's not just about the skills and the talents, because there's a lot of people that have the ability and willingness, we'll go back to that, to be an entrepreneur. But they're not the type of human that can sustain being an entrepreneur. I had to do a lot of gut checks on, am I actually willing to do these things? How long am I willing to do these things? Do I have the patience? Do I have the resilience? Do I really have these things? And in the beginning, those weren't questions in my mind. So I say that to say, there's a certain lifestyle. There's these qualities, there's the tough questions and the level of true self-awareness and assessment that has nothing to do with your feelings that you have to do. And that's why I think I opened this conversation with talking about that, because as soon as I got the feelings and the intrusive thoughts or the flat out lies that I told myself, as soon as I got that shit sorted, and it wasn't just learning it, it was executing on it, embodying it, and truly being that, all of the other things seem to just start coming together.
What type of human? You said you got to be a type of human to really be a successful entrepreneur. Do you have that identified yet? Or are you still kind of working through it?
No, I don't have it fully identified. I'm still working through it. I mean, there's some things that I can say that if you possess this, you're probably not a good entrepreneur, but I don't think I have
for
them.
example.
For example, if you're an impatient person, you don't need to be an entrepreneur. If you're looking at entrepreneurship because of what you can get out of it, and that's your primary motivation, and be like, no, no, no. Yes, you see the planes and the cars, you see the 1% or the 5%. This isn't the thing. And again, I had some of these qualities too that I either had to get rid of or redefine for myself.
Think about the pain that you had to go through and the hits you had to go through
100%.
To decide when things weren't going the way you wanted to decide, are you going to stick with it?
Yep.
That's when most people quit.
100%. And I don't want to say I almost quit. I'm saying that I entertained what quitting would look like.
I don't blame people for that. I just give people credit if they keep going.
Right.
Because it's not, the problem is, once you quit on an entrepreneurial journey, I mean, like when you quit, you're like, this is too hard. You're probably, if you quit because it's too hard and it's too painful, you're probably not going to come out of it again.
Yeah.
Right. There might be other reasons why people do. Like maybe the bank's like, you don't have money, you got to file bankruptcy. There might be things that it just failed.
Yeah.
But if people quit because it got too hard, you've taught yourself something as a human about yourself that you're not going to want to know the rest of your life.
That's exactly right. When you were saying that, something came to mind that is a quality and in terms of a human for this entrepreneurship conversation. If you are able, not can you, will you, if you will be willing to go do work every single day that is hard, and a majority of the time you don't want to do it, and you have no good indication factually or truthfully about if or when this thing's going to happen, other than, like you said earlier, you believe in this thing that you're pursuing.
I heard somebody say the other day, somebody looked at me and said, you're mission driven.
If those things line up and you're willing to do it, entrepreneurship may be for you.
Maybe.
Because there's other pieces to this. But I'm saying that is a thing that I had to take from other areas of my life, and I've now applied to other areas of my life, is I have to show up as the human I know that I am and that I'm capable of being in all of these areas, do what I need to do, and then let the rest happen.
Yeah. Here's what's great. This isn't where somebody's like, oh, look at those guys sitting up there talking about whatever, and that's just condescending. No, I was sitting and talking to an elite human 2 weeks ago. And a guy he was on my podcast, so they can go see it, but James Orsini, he was like Gary Vee's right-hand man for like a decade, right? This guy's awesome. He just retired. Like he put the stuff out and he retired. Good for him. But he said something in a podcast. I wouldn't share it if it were a private conversation. And he said, I've realized that I'm a great consigliere. And he realized that he's been a CEO. He has worked for these huge marketing companies. He was in the boardrooms. And he realized it's some combination of what his natural instincts are best at, where he's more comfortable, what he likes, that fires him up more. And a consigliere, if you know the mob analogy, it's the guy that's back in the dark part of the room.
Making things happen still.
That's whispering in the Godfather's ear and seeing it from a different perspective, that has a different mindset, that afterwards, not in front of a bunch of people, that's like, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, what about this? And what I looked at him and said, you are so valuable to the person in the number one seat, because without you understanding and knowing that about yourself and been in the seat, there's not many people that can have true empathy for a number one. And so that person is actually more valuable in certain times to that entity than the number one.
It's funny you say that, because I'll give you a perfect example in my life of someone I know like this, and it's my brother. I have one brother. He's 6 years older than me. I've always looked up to my brother, mad respect for him. We have a great relationship. And he said out of his own mouth, because he took the college MBA corporate path. And I think always kind of had a desire for entrepreneurship.
Who doesn't?
Right. I agree. And one of the things he said to me, because I kind of pushed back, well, go do it, whatever. And this is what he said to me. And I appreciated the candor and how he described it. He said, man, I'm a kingmaker. I'm a really good number two. I'm a really good number three in certain circumstances. He said, I've realized I'm not that person that's out front. I'm not that number one, but man, I'm really good at all of the stuff that comes right below that level. And the reason I have mad respect for that wasn't just that he identified it about himself. That's huge. A lot of people
self-awareness
won't make the
honest reflection.
100%.
Right.
But he is also one of the most content, fulfilled, and happy people that I know. He and his wife
is not a bad word.
Right,
agreed. It's a really good word.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. Contentment can be applied to what we were talking about a second ago.
You can be a content billionaire. You can be a content poor person who lives paycheck to paycheck. It's about where your internal strength, your drive, your mindset, about where you're at in life. That's where it is.
Again, what we were talking about earlier of those things of Can you go do the work every day, even when you hate it, down this path that's uncertain, all these other things? You can actually find contentment in that, because I've actually found a lot of contentment in it. Now, there's a lot of other things that drive me.
Yeah, if you still want more, you need to challenge your contentment.
Well, I'm saying I'm content with the pursuit of wanting more without having to have that thing yet.
There you go. But as long as you're pursuing it.
Agreed.
I don't want people to be in the contentment of accepting failure when they want more.
Agreed.
That's the part.
Right.
Contentment is getting to a place where you're like, you know what? I'm at a good place in my life.
Yeah.
I look around, I'm not comparing myself to anybody else. I'm good where I'm at, and I wake up feeling good. I have a good day. I've got a lot of the things that make me happy. Not a lot of things you can buy, a lot of things that can make you happy. And my life is good.
Yeah.
That's a good contentment.
And here's the thing, but I don't think, again, at least the way that I define content, I don't think that's mutually exclusive with ambition and drive and pursuit.
I agree with you.
And I think that is the contentment that I found isn't content with where I'm at. It's content with the process.
There you go. I'm content with this. I see where I'm going.
Yeah.
I see what it's going to take to get there. I see that I've built the system and built the game. I've built the board that I get to play now, that it's like, okay, now it's on me. I'm content that now it's like, here it is. Let me go to work and do the thing. And if most people are honest with themselves, they're probably already inside the thing that could give them the life they want so they can be content.
That's right.
But they got to do the work.
That's right. The theme that weaves through everything we've talked about is having an honest reflection and awareness about yourself, not from judgment, not from a punitive nature, punishing yourself or patting yourself on the back. It's, what is the truth about who I am? Because each one of us are the only ones that really know the truth about who we are. If you'll have that honest conversation with yourself, it all becomes very clear about what you should do and not do.
So here's something I've realized. With self-awareness is the only way you can have intentional change. That's it. Because everything else then is just luck. You have to know who you are and what your mindset is, your strengths, your weaknesses, ability. If you want your life to change, you have to be 100% honest about every part of it.
That's right.
So then you can intentionally change the thing.
When it sucks.
It sucks a lot of times.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting up here in this moment. There's a lot of, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, and you can finish up if you want. I was again on another podcast in New York City, and somehow it came up about the struggle and all that. I said, you all, here's the key. They listen to people that are in elite places. We could throw out a Ray Dalio, a Richard Branson, a Bill Gates. We just see the wealth and all this. It's like, y'all, if you would really have the inside knowledge about the struggle that these people have had, it's probably way more than you've even comprehended in your life. The bigger things you have, the bigger problems you have. What I said to these ladies, I was on their podcast, I said, here's what I've realized the most important thing. You could start out working at a fast food restaurant and become a district manager making hundreds of thousands a year. I think the guy who was just recently the CEO of Walmart, I think he started as a stock boy, right? Those things aren't just a singular truth for an individual. They're a universal truth.
Right.
If you're the person that does the work, that has the right attitude, the right mindset, that leads in, that's willing to give an elite level of effort, you will achieve amazing things. But here's what I told these ladies. The most important thing that I've found in my life is when things aren't going well, that I accept that's a part of the process. The important part is when it's not going well, you have to find a way to have a good attitude about it. Just to know, like, this is what it looks like. This is it. I have never known anything in my life for me to get to a really good rainbow-driven pot of gold at the end of it where it says, man, that was easy. That sure was a nice, comfortable path. It's never happened in my life. And so the only way that can happen is when the bad shit's going on, you find a way to just grin about it.
Yep.
And like, this is what they said it was.
So the last thing I'll say is really a similar concept to what you're talking about. We have to embrace the process. And by the process, I mean the journey, the goods and the bads. As soon as we fully embrace it, it's known there's going to be some high points, there's going to be some low points, but this is part of it. So we keep pushing forward. But the flip side of that is we focus too much on the outcome and the result, which is why you said earlier, people want it now. And that's where I'm finding happiness, fulfillment, and contentment isn't from where I'm at. It's the process of where I know I'm going. I don't fully know exactly what that is yet. I just know it's going to be really fucking awesome. And therefore, I can lean in at a different level because there's not the fear, there's not the stress, whatever. And I've preached this for years of focusing on the process, not the outcome. Yet in this other area, again, I had this duplicitous nature I didn't even really understand. I wasn't fully embracing the process. I understood it academically, conceptually, and I could identify it in other people. But I hadn't done that thing we were saying, which was have a brutally honest, truthful conversation about who I was and who I wasn't. As soon as I did, light bulbs went off and everything changed.
Welcome to 2026.
2026, baby.
Start now. Don't wait for New Year's resolutions. Or if this comes out after New Year's, the producers are looking at me, don't wait for next week or next month. Find yourself a coach or somebody that can be your mentor that says, just do this thing and go and do it in a singular focus. And I think in 6 or 12 months, they're going to wake up and just be amazed at what they have.
1,000%.
All right, man.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yep.